This is Justine Browning at the Museum of Natural History in New York City to talk to the cast of the steamy Starz series, Outlander. I love that in this season we see Claire in a new environment and we see how well she fits into French culture. It's really remarkable. Could you speak to why that's the case, why the people there are so accepting of her?
Well, I think Claire is a very adaptable character. I mean, she's able to adapt into her surroundings very well. She'd already spent quite a bit of time in France during the Second World War, so she speaks French. She understands something of the French mentality and the French culture. Obviously, 1745 France is very different, but I also think she's a very self-possessed woman and she commands respect and attention, and she gets that.
So one of the things I found very difficult to watch, harrowing even, is the experiences that Jamie has getting over what happened to him last season, these nightmares that he experiences, these flashbacks. Could you speak to playing those moments?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I wanted to show Jamie actually is like not himself in the first 5 episodes, and I was a little nervous about it because I think he's a sort of shadow of himself. I wanted him to not look as good. I wanted him to feel... I wanted you as a person watching it to think that, he just wasn't 100%. He's still obviously affected by this post-traumatic stress. And then there's a big... his salvation, his cure comes in a very... strange form.
Yes, it does, for sure.
Yeah.
But, speaking of the salvation, we also saw that while he was really almost thinking of ending his life even last season, that finding out that Claire was pregnant actually helped him to heal a bit. Could you speak to why you think that's the case?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's, very individualistic, and I think anyone that's been through any kind of trauma deals with it in a different way, but he feels guilty and at the end of season 1, but this new life gives him hope and gives them both hope, and it's something that he's always wanted. And actually, this child throughout season 2 is the point that Jamie and Claire always find their way back to each other. They connect over this child. It's a very beautiful sort of plot line in the series.
I just had a quick question about your extensive theater background, costumes, props, stage combat, and all of that. I'm sure that comes into play here for this role. Could you speak to that a bit?
I did. I've done a lot of theatre back in England. Most of the good chunk of my early career was all theatre. So yes, I suppose. I've done there is a duel in this second season, but weirdly, actually, for a character that's considered so violent, most of the time you see Jack in interior spaces not really doing anything to anyone. It's mainly largely psychological and kind of suggested. The actual moments of genuine physical violence are relatively limited, and yet to answer your question, not really.
No, absolutely. What's interesting here is that we see both characters that you play in very different lights, in very different ways, different environments in this season.
Compared to the first season?
Yes, absolutely.
I agree, I think that sort of was my experience of the second season. Jack certainly, all the times we see him, he is no longer in control, which I think is really interesting. And then obviously we see Frank sort of trying to come to terms with some of the sort of basic dilemmas of the whole piece, really. So we come up, him being told by Claire that she's time traveled, and which is some of the more esoteric stuff within the sort of the world of the piece. So, and trying to sort of root that in emotion and sort of psychology. So, yeah.